Mike DeWine reignites the birth control debate.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Bill Cohen, State House correspondent for Ohio Public Radio. Julie Carr-Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press. Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio, and Gene Krebs, former state legislator.
Just when you thought Republicans were not going to talk about reproductive health care for a while, Mike DeWine and 11 state attorneys general have reignited the debate over mandatory insurance coverage for contraception. DeWine and the others have asked the Obama administration to exempt all private employers from the mandate to cover contraceptions and other reproductive services if those companies object. Right now, only small, mostly Catholic organizations are exempt from the mandate. Julie, I thought this fight was settled. Why are these guys and people bringing it back again?
Well, I mean, I think that they want to keep the pressure on the Obama administration and on the health care debate because it is not settled here. As we know, they're considering whether or not to put elements of it in the state budget that we're working on. And politically speaking, they have a base that is very interested in this issue on a moral level, and they really don't want to commit these businesses to having to pay for that. It's expensive.
But when you heard all the talk about Mitt Romney and the Republicans losing the war on women, quote, Gene, is it wise to bring this up again?
I think when you read the entirety of Mike DeWine's letter, you'll see that one of the things he's also referring to there, though, is the fact that the way that the law is written, it's going to be very clumsily implemented. It's going to be very difficult, which kind of goes to the long-standing issue I've had, is that a lot of public policy sounds really good when you propose it, but then when you actually start to implement it, it starts to run into some trouble. And I think that's part two, and a major part of what his letter is all about.
But I think maybe Governor Kasich may agree with the thrust of what you just said. He's pretty smart in terms of sometimes not getting in the middle of a heated debate. When they asked him about it at the Cleveland City Club, he said, "I've never heard of this before. I don't want to get into answering something until I have full knowledge of what's being talked about." Yeah. And then his press secretary said, "This doesn't involve us. It's an attorney general thing at the moment." Yeah. So I think Kasich is pretty smart at this point. At least his analysis says, yeah, don't get into disputes when you don't need to.
There are about 5 segments of the Republican Party, Gene. It wasn't that cute to come up with that. And the cultural aspect of the Republican Party loves these things. It makes them feel so good. The fiscal aspect, people think they're crazy. I don't know why they keep bringing it up. There's a fascination with the female body from that perspective of controlling it. I mean, the logic is, it's health care. Doesn't the employee contribute some money towards that health care? Why should the employer have the total decision over who's going to get what aspect of the health care?
Well, the argument is, Sam, that this is a religious freedom issue, that these folks are religiously opposed to contraception, and thus they shouldn't be forced to offer it as part of their insurance.
As an employee, don't I have religious freedoms? Shouldn't I be able to express myself about my body with regards to what you want to do to me?
Well, and this one's going to be interesting to watch legally because that argument has always been that, I as a taxpayer shouldn't be forced beyond my religion to see my taxpayer dollars spent in a way that I disagree with religiously. But this is saying, there are legal elements of this that businesses are paying that they shouldn't have to pay for, which is a little bit different than taxpayer money. Well, altogether different than taxpayer money.
If you start giving exemptions on religious grounds, it could wind up being a very broad exemption. In the early '60s, only pacifists like Quakers were given conscientious objection in terms of the draft and the war. But quickly, by the time the decade was over, the courts had ruled, no, you can be a mainstream Protestant or a Jew and get conscientious objection. And then later they ruled you don't really even have to be strictly religious. You can be an agnostic. You can be a humanist. So I think once you cross that line on religion, it can be broad.
But to that point, you look at Sharia law and the rights of women. If you are a very devout conservative person who does not believe in equal rights for women, are you allowed to discriminate against women based on your religion?
Simply because you own a business?
Yeah.
I don't think that's what they're going to. I think the Roe v. Wade and all those other decisions were based upon an implied right of privacy in the Constitution. And that's going up against now a very explicit right of religious freedom. And so, like Julie said, this is going to be a very interesting decision. Eventually, this will get to the Supremes pretty quickly. And it will be a very interesting, because they have two rights they have to balance, which is appropriate for the Supreme Court to weigh in on. My suspicion is that the explicit one in the First Amendment will probably trump to some degree or moderate the implied right of privacy. That's not
mine, and the first person
right
overrides his or hers in the second person.
I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer, but we have to wait and see how this one actually plays out.
What about the business fairness aspect? It was also mentioned in the letter that,
Yeah.
Yes, if you're a small Catholic church or organization, you're exempt from this mandate. Mm-hmm. Okay, if they're exempt, why can't a larger corporation, a private corporation, be exempt as well?
And you're now getting into what was a major portion of this letter is that, and I thought the Attorney Generals made a very good point, is the fact that the only person who's going to actually benefit from how this structure is the insurance companies. So for anybody out there who's employed by Nationwide watching the show, this is probably going to be a good thing for you.
But Jane, if there's no war on women, why are we constantly languishing in these subject areas that have to do with the control of women's bodies?
I think it's because, like I said before, you have two ways to look at this. If you talk to the folks at NARAL and some of the very pro-choice groups, they believe that a woman has a unlimited amount of rights over her body and her decisions. If you talk to some of the folks on the religious right, they'll say that the fetus has unlimited rights. And that's why they're all very concerned about conception. Most Ohioans, most Americans fall somewhere where they go, yes, the woman has some rights and the fetus has some rights. If you believe the fetus has no rights, then you're okay with partial birth abortion. If you think the woman has no rights, then you tend to fall down on the other area. And that's the debate we're having. And that's where
until you can sustain yourself on your own, you're not a human being. You can say whatever you want to say.
Okay, but
can you get insurance? No. We had to talk about the insurance company. Anyway, lawmakers were on break this past week. You could say it was an intermission, a halftime, perhaps, in the 4-month battle over the state budget. It appears Governor Kasich will need a second-half rally to get the House and the Senate to pass his plan of income and business tax cuts, an expansion of the sales tax, and the expansion of Medicaid, not to mention school funding and the tax on shale gas drillers. Bill Cohen, there was some hope that there might be some talks this week, some negotiating, try to reach an agreement during this week off. Was there any talk? Was there any agreement?
There was a lot of talk. I can't tell you if there was agreement, but I can tell you next Tuesday we're hoping that when the House Finance Committee comes up with what they say is a substitute budget bill, that we're going to see this alternative plan from key Republican legislators in which they say, yeah, we like the income tax cut, we don't like the sales tax expansion you proposed, we got some alternative ways to raise money. Not the sales tax expansion. We've got some other ways to do it. And they've been talking about them vaguely, like, well, let's get rid of some tax credits we're currently giving. Somebody even said, well, how about floating the idea of putting a means test on the homestead exemption, the property tax break that all the seniors get. Maybe let's just give it to lower and moderate income people. So there could be ways to still fund an income tax cut. Remember, we got natural growth in the tax money coming in. That could help fund it. But it's hard to see how it's going to be as big as the 20% cut the governor wants for families and 50% for small companies. I don't know how they're going to come up with all that.
A lot of math, a lot of numbers. The math needs some work to make it work.
Right, and the last time that we reformed Ohio's tax code and we created this new business tax called the CAT tax, the commercial activity tax, so there are some exemptions within that could be addressed and raise a decent amount of money. I think that there's sort of a movement to take a look at that again and decide, maybe we can work within what we've already created rather than hitting these professional services with the sales tax.
But Gene, the lawyers don't get the sales tax, but this manufacturer that gets the exemption and the CAT, do they call you now as a former right?
Yeah.
If the legislator, which you once served as?
Yes, yes, they will call. I think what you're going to see, and Bill's alluded to this a little bit, there is a former tax commissioner who I will not name, because it's not gone public that much yet, who's out there with a very comprehensive plan to move from a sales tax to a consumption tax, to expand the commercial activity tax, and to tremendously lower the income tax along with some other items too. I've not seen the details on that, but it's something worth, I think, looking at, because this guy is really smart and respect him a lot.
You know, the interesting thing for me, the Republican Party has a passion for tax reduction. And one day, we're going to have a quiet conversation where you can tell me, what has it done for the economy? I remember the 21% tax over a 3-year period. All the money that we've given away to people, and I haven't seen any benefits. So one day, I'm hoping you and I can have a beer and you can explain that to me.
I can give you a thumbnail version right now. The question is from a conservative versus a liberal perspective, is the accumulation of wealth, is that a crime? And if it is a crime, then there's more of a belief that you can go ahead and tax it more freely. If you believe that the wealth has been created through hard work, individual initiative, then there's more of a personal rights to it. And how you
I
can
don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think that people who support taxes on accumulation of wealth necessarily, I think it's been criminally gained. I just think that there are those who say that, including many on the liberal side, millionaires who have come out and said, I don't mind being taxed.
When Obama said, you did not build that, what he was referring to was this ideological divide between the right and the left, I believe.
He was talking about infrastructure, education systems, highways,
But
that help
all
businesses
that,
grow.
Right,
But
all
Gene,
that,
the math says, what's the benefit? Bottom line, show me the beef. What comes from this?
what I trained in college and studied and have served me very well in the Ohio House was animal behavior. And so what you're seeing here is the issue of fairness is an interesting thing that we can apply to definitely all mammals and many, and especially primates, is that when you get to a certain point and someone in that group starts to accumulate an outsized amount, then everybody else says, no, I want that. It goes to the issue of fairness that you brought up, but the fairness...
So taxing the rich is natural, is what you're saying.
Yes, it is a natural response.
There you go.
It is, but it may not be a proper response.
We have to reach into our inner, better
Selves.
selves, our
Figure
higher
this
being.
out.
I can see the campaigns like Charles Darwin, soak the rich, basically.
Yeah.
He says soak the rich.
Oh, my God.
Right. Okay. Remember last year when there was a fight over leadership of the Ohio Republican Party? Kevin DeWine, you'll remember, was pushed aside. Well, there is another possible fight over the GOP championship, this time involving the Tea Party. Tom Zawistowski, a Northeast Ohio businessman, a leading Tea Party organizer in Ohio, says he will run for Republican chairman. Zawistowski is the Portage County Tea Party leader and says the grassroots conservatives feel shut out by the GOP. The favorite to run the party still is Matt Borges. He's the party's executive director and the choice of Governor Kasich. Gene Krebs, you live on a farm, so you're our country mouse, city mouse Republican here.
Right.
Are the country mice Republicans getting along with the city mice Republicans these days?
There is a certain, what we call a dynamic tension going on. And Tom Z and the Tea Party have a tremendous amount of vigor and strength they've had to remain Republican causes of late. I do not believe Tom Z, which is, thank God everybody shortens his name, will succeed in this, because the Tea Party is like a protein organization. There is a problem, they rise up, they get organized, they exist, they take care of that one problem, and then they fade back into the woodwork. That's radically different than a maintenance of a long-standing organization. 88 counties, 88 county chairmen, the structure for this, and Borges has run or been involved in a multitude of statewide campaigns from a variety of levels, so he'll be able to give it that perspective. And I think at the end of the day, the Central Committee is going to go with somebody who has run that type of store before. They'll say, we want you to have it.
Well, and this really said a lot about the Tea Party, I thought, because 5 or 10 days earlier, this group had come out and said, we're really disappointed in everything that's going on here. We don't like that Kasich's supporting an expanded Medicare. We don't like that Rob Portman is supporting gay marriage. And we are putting you guys on notice. And this was their response, which tells me, as Jean says, that organization is important to them. They're not ready to spin off into a third party. I don't think that they have the I guess either the revenue or the power to do that, and so they're trying to take over what exists, which tells me they're more united than separate.
It would seem though that Tom Z is tilting at windmills here. And obviously he believes what he's saying, and so did these 83 other Tea Party types and conservatives who wrote this letter saying we're outraged that you incumbent Republicans have sold us out and you're not conservative enough. But how he's going to win over the majority of the GOP Central Committee, I don't see how he's going to do it, because all the statewide elected officials on the Republican side and all the legislative leaders have already come out for Borges. So I don't know where Tom Z is going to get all his votes.
I support Bill. This is theater. And it's theater with a purpose, though. The purpose is to remind the moderate, the capitalist part of the party that we still exist in Ohio. It's only 66 votes, and 40 votes, you win. I think it's an easy process for Borges to win. I'm titillated. Your point is, if we have an issue, we'll focus on it. Don't forget we still exist. Right. I think ultimately this is the cancer on the party, and getting people in line is going to be an issue. You can't constantly pop your head up and get out of line.
Well, last year we had the fight with Kevin DeWine, and Bob Bennett took over on an interim basis, and there was that turmoil, and then the Republicans lost the presidential race in Ohio. How important is unity, smooth transition process when people leave, to electoral success?
I think all of that would be trumped by, can they get a photocopy of the Barack Obama playbook from 12, okay, and utilize that for get out the vote. That is the challenge for both parties. And traditionally what you see, and once again I go to the organizational aspect of it.
Be careful what you ask for, because Barack Obama's key ingredient was policies that those groups of people liked. So don't tell me just about the field. Those people like certain policies that they supported.
But Sam, I know you love the fact that the GOP is split and they're arguing among each other. But you got to admit, the Democrats have gone through the same kind of thing. Right. And when the people to the left of the Democrats get a little too strong and pull the party too far to the left, at least as far as the majority of voters are concerned, the party loses.
Bill,
right?
I've been around long enough to understand clearly what you said. This too shall pass, and this too they shall be unified. What I hope comes out of unification, though, is a stronger appeal to women, stronger appeal to people of color, and a little bit more liberalization of their policies.
I think what you're going to see is the first two, which is going to be more appeal because of the demographic changes that are occurring. And the younger Republicans have different views of people in my age group.
Don't they have to do that through policy, though?
Yeah.
Well, and some of the folks who are involved in this, including Seth Morgan, who was a former state legislator and tried to run for state office and got summarily kind of put down, I guess, for that. I mean, he's in there, some former state legislators, and I think that it's a diverse coalition that's trying to say, as Sam mentioned, listen to us, we're here, we're conservative.
Yeah. All right. In this off-year election, the issue of gun control is making its way into mayors and city council races around the state. A shooting in a Toledo shopping center brought the issue into that city's mayor's campaign. Connecticut this week passed new gun regulations, and school districts around Ohio are watching as their teachers train how to use guns, and the NRA is calling, of course, for more gun training for school employees. Sam Gresham, there aren't any new gun regulations going to be passed here in Ohio. It's just not going to happen. It's not on the table of the lawmakers. But how much of an issue is it among voters, regular folks who are out in the communities?
I think there are two extremes. There are people who say more guns protect more people. Then there are people who say more guns make more people get shot. And what my police officer friends tell me is to come onto a scene and everybody has a gun is the worst thing on God's earth, because you can't decide who is good and who is bad. So I don't think more guns solve the problem. I think the idea of having control of weapons is very important. Now, For those who've never been shot, I have. It's not a nice thing, and I'm not looking forward to it again, and I don't encourage nobody to walk around with a gun, because it doesn't solve problems. Most people who carry guns for protection, most time get them taken away from them by whoever's trying to do something to them, because it takes a lot more to shoot a person than just a gun and a trigger, if you've ever had to do that. I think what Progress Ohio did was the right thing. We need to get ready. We can't get...
They came out for background checks and registrations.
Right. We can't get large magazine reductions. We can't get registration. We can't get weapons of war taken out of our governmental system. 90% of this country supports all those things. And we can't get our federal government to move or our state government to do that. You're right. Colorado and Connecticut did the right thing. I'd like to see it in Ohio, but I don't think it's going to happen. People kill other people. And one thing about these guns that people don't realize, where you have more guns, there is more suicides. 2/3 of all those people murdered are suicides. Where people have those guns and they kill themselves.
60% of the gun deaths are suicides.
Right.
But it's not going to happen. We just passed loosening of gun laws in Ohio late last year.
There's this interesting twist, though, that's been happening. I mean, we had a prison director killed on his doorstep in Colorado. We had a district attorney in North Texas killed along with his wife in his home. And this is generally those in law enforcement and are, they support gun ownership. They own them responsibly, and this is a twist on law enforcement that I think may change a little bit of the debate. I've been working on the upcoming Lucasville riot anniversary, which will be Thursday, and there's a sort of a trepidation out there about what's going on with guns because of some of these incidents.
Yeah, unfortunately, outside of the issue of suicide, there's no good data, no good studies out there about what is the effective tool to use to decrease these horrendous things we're seeing going on. I wish I could sit here and say, here's a policy, you do this one thing, and it will, except for the issue of suicides, it will drive down the homicide rate. What?
Each round costs $1,000.
But there's been no studies that indicate that, and I need them on my farm to go ahead and shoot some of God's creatures that are trying to eat some of my creatures.
Background checks, though, this is something 80 to 90% of Americans favor. Let's make sure everybody has a background check when they get a gun, no matter where. Well, not my job to say whether it makes sense, but my point is, when you got 80 to 90% of Americans calling for something, it's pretty tough for Congress to say why they're not passing it.
Right.
If it's 55%, okay, Congress can say we're supposed to lead the American people, and they may be a little off. But when 80, 90% of the people call for it,
Can I say this? This is just Chinese water torture. Eventually it's going to happen because people are going to continue to kill people, and that 80 to 90% is going to grow to 100%, and they're going to force some people to do something. NRA is winning now. This is the early stage of the football game. We're in the first quarter. There are 3 more quarters to go. Before this thing's over, we're going to have all these controls that we asked for. Now, I may not be here, you may not be here, but eventually it's going to happen.
But the Ohio House isn't going to pass any regulation. They're actually looking at trying to nullify federal regulations. There's one bill out there. It won't go anywhere, but
they just gave you permission to carry a gun in church and in a bar and in a state park. No, they're not going to do anything.
I don't think the legislature wants to.
So they see those numbers that Bill Cohen sees, Quinnipiac 80% support increased background checks, and they're just not going to.
Well, remember redistricting, and most of them, it's controlled by Republicans, and the Republican districts that they represent are very comfortably Republican. I actually haven't looked at the breakdowns in terms of Republican voters and how they feel on this, because it doesn't always match up with the
majority does.
Yeah, the majority does.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our weekly final parting shots, our off-the-record predictions and takeaways. Go ahead, Gene, you're up first.
I always try to part the curtain there for Bobby and Betty Buckeye so they see a little bit what's going on. To understand the inner workings of the state budget, my recommendation is there is a new 3rd edition out of the book Follow the Money, published by the Center for Community Solutions. Go to their website, communitysolutions.com. Order yourself a copy of it, and then you will know everything that Sam Gresham knows.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Sam, you're up.
Guns and identity politics. It seems that the Republicans have to be personally affected before they decide to change their mind about some aspect of public policy, particularly the gay communities. I'm going to say one or two major people are going to be members of a Republican Party, and something's going to happen with a gun with them. And things are going to change. It's just going to take a matter of time. The right person has to get killed, and all of this foolishness is going to stop.
Julie.
I'm going to say if legislators come back to talk about Medicaid expansion and whether to support it or not, a compromise that might come out may look for attaching some strings to those clients. If you take Medicaid, maybe you'll have to do something in return.
And the Obama administration would go along with that. They would have to, I guess.
They would have to.
And Bill?
I think Republicans will piece together enough new revenue to pay for an income tax cut. It may be smaller than what Kasich is proposing, but in next year's election, they'll combine that with the automatically triggered $400 million tax cut that people are going to get in a one-time only thing this year, and Republicans will be able to put those two things together and say, we gave you more than $1 billion worth of tax cuts. Vote for us.
All right. And my final thought, I'm wearing my Syracuse tie. Syracuse is in the Final Four this weekend, and for some strange reason, Ohio State fans feel this loyalty to Big Ten teams, and they root for Michigan. Well, I hope and fully expect that Ohio State fans will be rooting for Syracuse this weekend when they take on Michigan. Please. I'm not going to predict, because every time I predict that my team's going to win, they lose. But let's root for against Michigan this weekend. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Please check us out online, Facebook and Twitter, at our website, wosu.org/COTR. I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.